And now, ladies and gentlemen, Skywalker.
Thank you, Jim Davis, and thanks for tuning in to Radio Memories here on Wednesday, October 6th, 2021. We have a great show lined up for you today. Radio, TV, and movie veteran Rick Scarry. This is going to be a very special show to me because Rick let me into the wild world of radio at the age of 12 years old. He took me under his wing. He was my mentor, my teacher, and he means a great deal to me, probably more than he will ever know. And today he has agreed to share his radio memories. And joining us in the studios in, I believe it's Burbank, California, Rick Scarry.
Not only the away. That's what they used to say.
What's that?
They used to say, "Scary the mice away."
Not only radio veteran, but TV veteran. Can I quickly tell the story how I met you?
Sure.
Okay. I'm 12 years old. I just get into junior high school. My favorite radio station is KHJ. My parents listen to KGIL. I hate this radio station. Can't stand it. It's the worst thing I've ever heard. It's middle of the road. And my mom says to me, you know, they're having this leukemia radiothon and they're asking for any volunteers. And they're accepting anybody. They said, and I said, yeah, but they're not looking for, 12-year-olds to go in there and answer phones. Oh, no, they said anybody. And I'll drive you down there. And if they don't want to accept you, we'll come home. And I said, okay. So we drove down there and yeah, they accepted me. So I sat and answered phones. I was so in love with the radio station that I didn't want to leave. And so there were pictures of all the disc jockeys, remember, on the wall.
I remember it.
In the front of the radio station. But I was suddenly just enamored with this radio station, just the equipment and everything else. And so I asked every person that I could recognize. The first one, Dick Whittington, who was probably the rudest person to a 12-year-old kid.
Not just a 12-year-old kid. Everyone. Okay.
But everybody said no, except for this kind elderly man named Chuck Cecil. Mm. And he did 7 to midnight on Saturday and Sunday called The Swingin' Years. And so I do this for 2 months. And Rick Scarry was doing the regular format, which was the middle of the road format, on before Chuck Cecil. And I would see him every time because I would get there early. And you were always very friendly. You were always very nice. And you had the friendliest voice. You have such a beautiful voice. And it was KGIL. It just flowed. Everything that came out of your mouth flowed. I do this for 2 months, and then Chuck Cecil shows me a memo from Stanley G. Warwick, the general manager of KGIL, who says, we can't take responsibility for people. If you, the disc jockey, wants to take responsibility for the person, then you're liable for anything that happens to that person. And then Chuck Cecil says, I'm here just a couple of days. So, we're just going to have to, call it, a day. So the next day I go to your remote at Neiman Reed's Lumber City.
Oh, yeah. One of our big clients.
Big client. And I see you at the window and you wave me in. So I walk into the mobile studio and I explained the situation. And you said you had seen the memo. And I said, would you take responsibility for me if I just like help you out? And you were just a weekend disc jockey. And you said, sure, I don't give a fuck. I had never heard that come. I mean, that was the most surprising thing to first hear come out of your mouth. And so our relationship began. And soon, I don't know how I luck out, because you would soon become the program director. The radio station lost that dead MOR sound. We started actually playing songs that were, familiar.
Almost hits. Yeah. Songs like Jigsaw, Sky High, and sure.
Even Love Will Keep Us Together was much better than Memories. So, and then KGIL-FM, when we bought KVFM, you put that together. But that's how we started out. And from 12 up until the time that I went over to 10Q, it was like an amazing ride. And then I just stumbled into 10Q thanks to you introducing me to Scott Mason.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 14 and he was 16, and you had called him in for something, you had needed something in engineering wise. But I wanted to explain how I still blame you for getting me. I mean, I still thank you for getting me into this business.
Well, and a lot of people still blame me to this day for getting you into the business. They said, why would you do something like that? And I said, well, I was drinking a lot in those days, so I'm sorry.
Still apologizing for it to this day.
Still apologizing to this day. Yeah.
So, you have a really interesting background. So where did it all start?
Oh, wow. It's interesting. When I was in high school, very much like yourself, I lived in rural central Ohio, and the nearest big market was Columbus, Ohio, the capital city. And we had a radio station in that city that had some of the best DJs that ever existed, including one who became legendary in Los Angeles. Even though he was from LA, he was back in Ohio getting his feet wet. He became my mentor, and that was Dave Hall, the Hullabalooer. And he was on WTVN 610, and he was the morning man on that show. And there were many great people. Somebody most of us probably don't know, but one of the most influential guys was named Jim Runyon. He went on to Chicago and also became the incredible voice of the syndicated series Chicken Man. He was the guy that would go, well, what will Chicken Man get into this week? That was the great Jim Runyon. And both of these guys just helped me. And I would sit there like you, and I'd answer the phones and do their errands and do all the stuff that was necessary. And when Dave Hall would go do record hops, I'd go and carry his record player into the place and sort out all the 45s. They were even using those at the record hops, and get all of his records ready and stuff like that. And so they encouraged me to get into it. And so I kept trying. And I lived in a little town called Delaware, Ohio. And they had a 500-watt daytime or something. I don't even think that exists anymore, does it? I don't think that exists. No. And you couldn't get a job there unless you were, because they didn't have enough money to hire a big staff. If you had a first-class license,
right, right,
they would hire you in 15 minutes, because that was such an important thing in these little dinky radio stations. And so the Hullabalooer
told me when I was 14, you made me go get a third class with a broadcast endorsement. Do you remember?
Exactly right. Yeah. Well, I needed a first class, and the Hullabalooer says, there's a school in Atlanta. It's great. You go there 6 weeks. They'll teach you everything you need to know, and you'll get your first class license, and you'll get a job in a minute. And so I went to Atlanta. I went to school during the summer. I got my first class license. I went back. And the manager at the little station there in Delaware, Ohio said, "You're the guy." And I was started immediately. I was doing everything. I'd have to take the transmitter apart when we were down and clean the tubes. And I mean, I did everything in that radio station, everything in that radio station. And it was on the air as well. And just learning my craft. I had no training as a DJ. You learned as you went along. Mm-hmm. And in Delaware, Ohio, they didn't much care if you screwed up a word every now and then, or, as long as you made them understand what you were talking about, they were very happy. And then the military came along and said, "Gee, it's time for you to go be in the Army." And I said, "Whoa, hold the phone a minute," and the recruiter who did a show on our radio station, that's the beauty of having the contacts. He was the guy that did a show on our weekends on our radio station. He says, "Well, you can take this business that you're in now and apply it to your military career. And if you pass all of the exams and stuff, you can be a radio guy in the Army." And I said, "All right, I'm in, And so I joined the Army, and after the hell of real honest to God Army basic training with, crawling in the mud and getting shot at and snakes and everything in South Carolina, they sent me from there to, of all places in the world, New York City, where the Department of Defense had a school of radio and television and journalism. And I'm a country boy from Central Ohio. I've never, like, standing in the Big Apple looking at the buildings like, oh, I've never seen anything like that before. And I'm living there in the Army, not on an Army base, but in New York City, learning how to be a professional radio and TV person. And I passed and, flitted around for a couple of jobs. And eventually they said, "Okay, we're sending you to the headquarters of Armed Forces Radio and Television Service in Frankfurt, Germany, and you're going to be on the air there." And I flew to Germany, spent 2 years there being on the radio, and then came back to the United States and decided not to go back to Ohio, came out to Los Angeles, and the Hullabaloo was a big star on KRLA by those days. I went right over to see him. And he said, in those days, I don't think this exists anymore. There was a group called the Southern California Broadcasters Association.
Right.
And they would always have a bulletin board in the lobby telling you what jobs were open anywhere in Southern California.
That's right.
Hullabaloo says, "Get over to that place, look at those jobs, write them down, call me and tell me which ones are available."
I think it still exists.
No, does it still exist?
I
don't know.
You know what? I actually can't confirm because I've stepped away. So,
and it said that KUDU in Ventura, California needed a DJ, an all-night guy. And so I got in the car and immediately drove up there, got the job in a second and a half. I guess I just happened to walk in the door at the moment when they were desperate. And I got the job. And then within 9 months, I was the program director of KUDU in Ventura. And then it just worked from there. You graduate, and then I went to KZY in Anaheim, and I went, you jump around and go from here. Mm-hmm. I used to follow Wolfman Jack on K-Day. What was the most exciting thing I ever did in my life? Some of our
first day, our first day.
Yeah.
You're telling me stories.
Yes.
Okay. And this is not the Rick Scarry that I expected. I mean, I really thought that you were this mellow, and I thought you were going to be a real boring guy.
I am.
And after the first day, I knew this is my guy. This is my kind of guy. I already, I love this guy, and you were tough. You were tough, but you know what? You made my skin thick. You made me.
Oh, you got to have that.
And you have to have that.
Yeah, because a wussy can't make it in the big time radio.
And the wussies do, and they wimp out.
Yeah, they do.
They wimp out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you gave me that thick skin to go out and in the world of this business and to be able to survive.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, that first day where you're talking about Wolfman Jack and J-Day, and then I realized, oh, this guy is not KGIL at all. It's just a facade. It's a facade. He's doing a gig.
Yeah.
He's doing okay. And I realized
I could do pretty much any format. Before I got to KGIL, mixed in there between Ventura and Anaheim and all this, I got a job in Hawaii on the radio. And used to be a legend in New York legend that owned radio stations named Jock Fernhead. He used to run the incredible 1010 Wins New York, which at one time was like KHJ. It was as good as it got. Well, Jock retired to Hawaii and started a little radio station over there. And I went over on vacation. I just went in one day and said, gee, I wonder if you could get a job here. Because you're in Hawaii and paradise. And again, I went in and somehow talked my way into a job as long as I would change my name. They owned a lot of stations, a lot of companies owned their jingle packages. And there were a lot of people who were the same name DJ that weren't the same person. That went on a lot in the 60s and 70s. And the guy says, you're going to have to be Sebastian Tripp and you're going to be the morning man.
That's right. I remember this. I remember this.
KKUA Kakua, the big 69 in Honolulu. And so I was Sebastian Tripp. I was the second Sebastian Tripp. I don't know if there was a third or not, but it was great fun. I really enjoyed myself over there. but I got island fever and had to leave and came back to LA again. And luckily, I've always been able to get a job. Yeah, after K-Day, I switched around again. And there's so many that I can't remember where I was for this 8 months and that 9. It was like the song from WKRP, moving around from town to town, up and down the dial. And that was great because I actually used to do a lot of the off-camera voices on that show. So I knew all those guys extremely well.
Oddly enough, as a youngster at KGIL, I had met, I guess you were friends with Frank Bonner.
Well, absolutely. We were in acting school together. We'd known each other for a long time. Yeah.
And that's where I first met Frank Bonner.
Yeah.
I would work on 8 episodes later of the new WKRP in Cincinnati, which is a horrible show.
Yes, it was.
And I told him, I met you as a kid at KGIL.
Yeah.
And I got to do one episode where Howard Hesseman comes back as Dr. Johnny Fever. Mm-hmm. And I also told him, I had met you at KGIL.
He actually filmed there on a series too.
What's that?
Howard actually filmed at KGIL on another show before WKRP in Cincinnati.
Wasn't it Switch?
It's Switch. That was the show with Robert Wagner and Eddie Albert. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. I remember them doing that. And I see the Columbo episode all the time on MeTV.
Yeah.
And it's right there in the old building.
The old building.
And I see the KGIL car that I was driving at 15.
Yeah. Now. We don't reveal everything here. Okay.
But and the KGIL remote unit right there.
Yeah.
That's the real radio station, folks.
Yes, indeed, it is. Yeah.
So after KGIL, then you go off to where?
I switched my entire life around, and I went. I don't know if you could go in a much further different direction. I went to KMET, the Mighty Met.
I know.
4.7, a little bit of heaven, and
Tweedledee.
And I did very well there. And I made it up to operations manager there. And then I got an incredible offer to go with RKO and became, to this day, I'm not quite sure what my title was, but I was at K Earth We did the failed version of trying to bring KHJ back. I was the image voice of Waxy down in Florida, which was one of their stations, and I would do some for Memphis. It was a bizarre job. And then they lured me back to KMET again with a better deal and a better contract, and then killed the station, took it off the air. And then I ended up over at, well, it just seems like a blur now. I ended up they tried to reincarnate it over at KMPC-FM with a station called The Edge.
Oh.
And I did mornings with Rachel Donahue over there, and it was the old KMET staff, Paraquat Kelly,
Right.
Cynthia Fox, Jim Ladd. We were all at The Edge. And it lasted a while, and I had a real good contract. So when I was with Gene Autry at Golden West, I went through 4 format changes. And the last job I had, because I was leaving radio, I was done with it by then because it had gotten just crazy and not fun. And when something stops being fun, you don't want to do it anymore.
What did you think of what did you really?
My last job was when they created a KLIT, which was talking about elevator music, and Jim Carson and I were the morning guys on KLIT. And we were happy to have the job. And then, Jim went on to spend another 30 years in the business. And
what were those call letters at KLIT?
I don't think we can say them anymore, can we? KLIT. They changed the call letters of that station every 15 minutes. I could never.
I thought the funniest call letters were KLIT. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, what's a good way to leave the business? You get kicked out of the KLIT. But
you got to laugh at it.
Well, I'd been studying for 10 years by that point, going to acting classes. That's how I knew Frank Bonner, a lot of those people, and started doing little 1-2 line parts on TV shows in my spare time.
All during the time that I was with you at KGIL, you would take me to all the acting gigs you were doing.
Yeah.
I loved every minute of it.
Well, I ended up doing over 150 different television shows, 37 feature films, about 20 some movies for television, dozens and dozens of commercials, voiceover gigs, that sort of thing. I was the promotional person for Fox Sports Net. I was, if you recall, the show that used to be on the Best Damn Sports Show, period. I was I wasn't the booth announcer, but I did every sketch voiceover, every promo voiceover, and that we did for Fox Sports Net. And that was one of the best jobs in the world, is like stealing money. I mean, I love jobs that are like stealing money. You just, nobody knows what you look like. You can show up in your underpants. They don't care.
I have to tell you, when I first saw Liar, Liar, I'm sitting, my ex-wife and I are at the movies, at the theater. Remember what the theater is, kids?
Yeah.
So my ex-wife and I are at the theater, and I nearly fall off the chair. And she says, "What's wrong?"
Yeah.
It's my old boss.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a fun job. Jim Carrey is bona fide crazier than a shithouse rat. But I really liked him. He was a very agreeable kind of guy, and loved when it all worked. He didn't just want him to be funny. He wanted you to be funny.
I do want to go back to one thing about KHJ when you became the program director.
Sure.
What was the idea of bringing in Dick Whittington?
Oh, I think they just wanted a familiar name on the air. They were so sold on the we had the hullabaloo too towards the end. He came in.
But Dave Hull was,
at least he fit the format. Yes.
Yeah.
even though technically I was the program director, I didn't have anything to say about what went on there. I was the administrator. It was all done through RKO consultants and that sort of thing. And I think somebody just threw his name in the hat because I don't think they even gave a damn who was on the air. They were so concerned about the car radio thing and the traffic and the thing. And I mean, it was just a last ditch effort to save something. And luckily I didn't take it down to its end. That's when they kind of brought in a guy named Phil Hall, and he came in and took over, and he was running it when it went down the tubes, when it finally was done. In fact, but the funny thing is, to this day, the very last voice ever heard on KHJ was me. When they tore the towers down a few years ago, they played the last few seconds of KHJ. And even though the last day was fabulous, Robert W. Morgan was there. Oh my God. I mean, Dave Williams. I mean, everybody was still movable from the past came to be on KHJ the very last day. But I was still with the company and still in the building, but I had nothing to do with it.
Even Ron Jacobs called.
Yeah.
And Ron, who used to like to tick off.
He could do that.
Robert W. and the real Don Steele.
Absolutely.
Kept referring to Don as Don Revert, which is Don's real name.
Oh, yeah.
And kept calling Robert W. Bob.
Bob, yes.
Which, and he kept saying Robert. It's hilarious.
It was some interesting times, but
it was hilarious last night for KHJ. Yeah.
Oh, it definitely was. But when they went to the final 30 seconds, I had pre-recorded this thing, and and now KHJ comes to an end. Mm-hmm. I can't remember the words. I've got it somewhere.
I have it.
I can play it for you. And became the oldies station, and it was, they were strange times, even by then I wasn't having much fun anymore. It was just like, wow, where did the joy of being on there on the radio and having fun? It wasn't fun anymore. It was business. And when it starts to be business, then it's done. Yeah. I understand the business part. You got to make money and all that kind of stuff. But it got to be no fun. And the lure of having a laugh or two on a TV show made it even better. But to get out.
What do you think of radio today and people saying that it can survive? And they're using the example of, sure, in a small market, because you can make it local. However, these radio stations aren't being able to sell the station.
And most of them are still doing some kind of satellite or syndicated service. And the idea of a local radio station has pretty much disappeared. Few talk stations do extremely well. And every now and then I'll be in another state or someplace and you'll hear something that's pretty good. You go, wow, there's somebody still doing a nice job, but I don't know. It's tough. I wouldn't know what to do today if I wanted to start a station. Wouldn't know what to do.
This, because of the pandemic, I hadn't been out, and this past June 30th, I turned 60 years old. So I took a trip and listened to terrestrial radio.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing there.
No, there isn't anything there. An occasional interesting talk show. But that's pretty much it. There's no format that makes you go, hey, I'd love to listen to this station. Put it on my preset button on my radio. Nothing like that.
When I left K-Earth at the end of 2018, we were just talking 4 times an hour.
Oh, yeah.
The other day I tuned it in. I didn't even realize there was a disc jockey on.
I know. You're basically a board op. You're board op. Yeah. Yeah.
And now
the funny thing is, once I'd gotten out of the business and was doing mostly TV, Mike Phillips called me one day and he said, "I'd like to do a weekend show on KEarth." I said, "Oh, I don't know, And he said, "Well, come in and do one. Let's see what it sounds like. And if you like it, we'll give you a weekend show." And I said, "Okay." And I went in and I did it. And at the end of the shift, he says, "Well, what do you think?" I said, "I can't do it anymore. How many times can I play Freddie Cannon and have something funny to say?" And I said, "I've said all there is to say. For me, I'm done. I can't do it. I could play one in a show or something, but I can't do it for the pure enjoyment of doing it."
Well, especially when you're
maybe that'd be fun, but it was not fun. And following the formatics
when you're rotating 200 to 250 songs.
And my God, I thought, if I have to play Palisades Park one more time, I don't know what the hell I'd do, but I never liked it in the first place. And excuse me, but they were great years. I treasure all the people I met in my radio, in the good radio years, and the incredible fun. Great success. I get a great pension from AFTRA, not combined SAG-AFTRA. I still have an AFTRA pension. And even though I have a combined one too, it's terrific. And I've done extremely well on the TV side. I've been a member. I just renewed my membership here in the spring. I've been a member of the Screen Actors Guild for 50 years. And I thought, wow, how did that possibly happen? Because I joined it when I first got to California and right out of the Army. And I was working at KEZY at the time, I remember. And somebody heard me and wanted me to do a national voiceover for Hunt's tomato paste. And that's how I ended up getting my union card, was doing a Hunt's tomato paste commercial. And,
you know what? Because I was just babysitting KGBS when I went to 10Q, when I went to Storer.
Yeah.
And KGBS and 10Q. And basically the babysitters were the producers for the 10Q jocks.
Right.
And when they asked 3 of the babysitters to submit to air checks, because they were selling the stations, and so they were going to do away with public affairs for on Sunday mornings from 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. And they asked 3 of the KGBS babysitters, I was one, to submit an air check. I was shocked when I was chosen.
There you go.
So, but they made me, because 10Q was a union station. And at the time it was $600. And I remember going to the GM and saying, well, this is only a temporary gig. I mean, I know that, this is going away. This is just, and in the interim. And he says, yeah, but we don't know how long. It could last up to a year. We don't know when they're going to sign when it's going to go through.
Yeah.
You have to join the union. So, and it was $600, back then. And so, and God bless.
Yeah.
Because
yep.
Thank God I got a pension.
Yeah, I know. I think when I joined SAG, it was $250. And I thought, oh man, that was like my weekly salary, if that. And I remember thinking, wow, $250. Then you have to give them money on a regular basis. I don't know about this, but
yes.
Yeah.
Now I'm grateful. Now I'm grateful.
Me too.
Great radio times, great, and I know you have so many more stories, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your TV career, because I saw it as it was starting to explode. You used to have this great picture that was so not you, but was such a great character of a gas station attendant.
Oh, yes. I still have that picture around here somewhere.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Great picture.
Yep.
Because it doesn't look like you.
That's the thing. And that's one thing I kind of became good at, was being not famous has its advantages, because if you're famous, you only get to do one thing.
Right.
And there's a whole cadre of guys like me. And somebody even wrote a book about us, where nobody actually knows who you are, but they always refer to you as, that guy.
Right.
And there's like 150 of us, that guys, who fill out every television cast, and that woman too. I mean, it's the same thing.
Right.
We fill out these shows. And I mean, I don't make millions of dollars, but I made as much on TV, if not more, than I ever did in the radio business.
Oh, God. But I'm certain
it's a union job that pay, and for the most part, they pay you not much, but a little bit forever. I did I guess 11 episodes of Married with Children as one of the Bundy's neighbors. I started as a voice character only, where I'd yell at Bundy as he was coming home out the window. I'd go, "Hey, Bundy, where you been? What are you doing?" And then they kind of liked, and they put me on a couple, and with him and the boys down at the nudie bar and all that kind of stuff. Right. But I still get checks for those things.
Right, you still get residuals.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but I always figure that's like going out to dinner money is the way I always
right. Anything that comes in the mail.
Yeah. And occasionally you get a big one. I got one the other day for a show. I got a check. I almost fainted. I was usually expecting $40, $50, $20, $1,800. And I'm looking at this thing. This must be a mistake. It must be for somebody else. But no, it was something that went into a new deal of some kind or something. I've done a lot of Hallmark movies, and I've done 6 Hallmark movies, which are sappy, but they were great fun to work on. Again, very professional. You just get in there.
That's just not something that's just not something that you mention on a date.
No. I'm in Hallmark movies. Well, unless you're dating a very old woman who loves Hallmark movies, and you'd be surprised how many people love those things.
Oh, I know.
If you're talking about people bitching and complaining, we were shooting one called Flower Girl, and we were shooting in the hills above Malibu in January. And in the hills above Malibu in January, it's really cold. And we're shooting a June wedding outside. And with flowers and all this stuff. And it was a great cast. Marion Ross from Happy Days. And there's so many good people.
I know Marion. Yeah.
She's the best. And one of the lead girls was getting a little bitchy because it was at night, it was cold, it was miserable, and you're supposed to be summer frolic and stuff. And she started to bitch a little bit. And a terrific director. In fact, he used to do a lot of Golden Girls. You mentioned him. His name was Matthew Diamond.
Mm-hmm.
This is the business we've chosen.
This is the life we have chosen. And oddly enough, the girl goes, "Yeah, it is, isn't it? Like, you're being paid to be on, Hallmark, one of the lead characters on a Hallmark movie.
Right.
What are you bitching about? So it's cold outside. Marion Ross ain't bitching, and people of that level, they just take it because that's what you do."
Well, they're pros, and you can tell the level of professionals, and you really can.
Oh, yeah.
In the old days, you couldn't because everybody was a pro and bit the bullet.
That's right.
But suddenly, I don't know when it changed.
I don't either.
But it did.
I'm very fortunate to have mostly good experiences. Very, very few bad ones. Count them on one hand, really bad experiences. But
well, you're a good guy, and you know what? You get, what you put in, you get back.
Yeah.
And you've been a good guy to a lot of people, and you certainly were to me. And I can't thank you enough for everything that you have done for me personally and professionally. And I will always appreciate it. I would like to invite you to come back on the show.
Anytime.
I know we ran much longer than you expected. And
does that mean I get paid double?
I knew you were going to ask for money.
Oh, okay. Where's my union rep? Where's the union rep?
He's asking for money.
Yeah.
I love you, man. And I hope we can get together for dinner soon. And
anytime. Are you picking up the tab?
Yes, I will pick up the tab. And I hope we get together again on the show on Radio Memories and talk some more. And I'd like to talk more about TV because you've done so much stuff. I witnessed it in the beginning. Every time I turned on the television, there you were.
I wish it was still that way.
Thank you, Rick. You have a great time. God bless. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
You betcha.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
What a great pleasure it is talking to Rick Scarry. If not for Rick, I would have never been able to see television shows. I never had to stand in line. Always got me in. Always my name was on the list. Never had to pay for amusement parks. He always got me in for free. My family had the best equipment to learn from. He taught me everything about radio and enough to learn how to go out and actually get a gig. And I thank him for his patience, his time, and thank you isn't a big enough word. And Rick, we're going to dinner soon. And by the way, my 89-year-old mother sends her love. So I can hardly wait till we get together for dinner and you come back to the show. So I certainly hope you do. And it was nice talking to Rick Scarry again. Coming up next week, we've got another radio veteran, Jeff Hunter, who was at the Mighty 690. He was at Hot Hits Kits in San Francisco. Boy, talk about a challenging format there. And he was a program director of Quad 106, talking about another challenging place to work, working for Ed Stolz, if anybody knows that name. And he'll be sharing his experiences and some fun stories coming up next week. So join us for more great radio memories.
Check out past interviews on the Radio Memories YouTube channel. Click the link.